Okay, so you wanted to take a deep dive into relationships. Well, ask and you shall receive. We're going deep into the world of Reddit's Am I the A-hole subreddit with a request from one of our listeners.
Ah, AITA. The place where everyone can air their relationship dirty laundry and be judged by a jury of, well, total strangers.
And judged they do, believe me. But this post, this is one that's so relatable, so cringeworthy, that you just can't look away. Imagine this. Guys on Reddit asking if he's a jerk for suggesting his hookup see a doctor.
Yeah, that's the very simplified version, isn't it? The real story, and why it caught our eye, involves what prompted that suggestion. Let's just say things got a little too real during a late-night encounter. He felt something unexpected. We're talking lumps, and, well, he decided to voice his concern right then and there.
Am I the asshole for suggesting that my hookup went to see a doctor about her vagina? I really don't think I've done anything wrong here, but I'll give a little backstory. I've been getting together with this girl on and off for about 10 years. While we were starting our latest tryst the other night, we were doing some foreplay, and I was feeling around down there and noticed some concerning lumps. The lumps were pretty far inside her, and I was concerned that she wouldn't have naturally gone in that far herself, with her own fingers. My mind made a mental note to mention it to her when we finished. So, while we were talking after, I mentioned to her what I had felt and said to her that she should get checked out. This is when she got really defensive with me and started accusing me of things. She said that, just 'cause we get together occasionally, it doesn't give me the right to talk about that stuff. I think she was also assuming I was calling her unclean or something, which is absolutely not the case. In fact, it's the complete opposite. I was just worried for her health, especially after having recently lost my mother to cancer in very similar circumstances. So I said to her that it's better to be safe than sorry. But this didn't go down as well as I thought it would, and she left. She usually stays for the night, and we have breakfast together. I admit it was a very blunt thing to say, right after having sex, but I just didn't know when else to bring it up. Am I the asshole? Edit for more details, as this has kinda blown up. 1. Yes, she knew I was talking about cancer. 2. Yes, she knows about my mother. She was at her funeral. 3. Yes, we used protection. We always do. 4. I have messaged her and explained my feelings on the matter. Mostly I just said that there was no judgment on my part, that it was only after my mother's experience that I had to make sure she was aware of the lumps. 5. She hasn't told me if she's been to the doctor or had previously known about the lumps, because why the hell would she? Her medical treatments are none of my damn business. 6. She's still upset with me. I messaged her yesterday asking if we could talk. She pretty much blew me off. Hopefully she has a think about it and realizes it came from a place of concern. 7. I could have waited until breakfast or brunch, yes. 8. I was more interested in the women's perspective with regards to replies in this post, as I didn't know if I had made some sort of male faux pas. 9. The lumps were small, about half the size of a pea, and hard. They were not on the cervix. I know her body very well, and this was not something that was there before. Hence my concern. 10. Thanks for all the comments. Edit 2. Since this has taken on a life of its own, I thought I'd better reply to some of the points that have been raised. 11. I'm Scottish, not American. 12. No, I've never fingered my mum, alive or dead. 13. She was at my mum's funeral because she knew my mother quite well, as did the 500+ other people that were at her funeral. It happens when you live in a small town. 14. We've both had relationships outside of hooking up, but there's never even been a conversation between us about getting together for real. We just phone each other now and again when we're horny or bored or both, but that's as far as it goes. I'm happy with that, and I think she is too. 15. The conversation happened about 20 minutes after we had finished and were engaging in pillow talk. 16. What the fuck is up with you lot in brunch?
About that timing.
Right.
Not exactly the smoothest move, was it? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great if he was genuinely concerned about her health, but there's a time and a place. And right after, well, you know.
It really does make you wonder what was going through his mind. Was it a misguided attempt at honesty? Maybe he just panicked. Either way, it just shows that even with the best intentions, it's all about the delivery. Especially with something as personal, as potentially sensitive as someone's health.
Right. You're setting yourself up for disaster.
Yeah.
And that's without even considering the fact that, according to the Post, they've been casually hooking up for, get this, 10 years.
Oh, wow, 10 years. Now that throws a whole other wrench into things, doesn't it?
It sure does. I mean, after a decade, does that even qualify as a casual hookup anymore? Where do you even begin to draw the lines in that situation?
You've hit the nail on the head. This isn't just a simple case of one awkward conversation, is it? It's about the complexities that come with casual relationships, those unspoken rules that we all navigate, and the very different ways we interpret intimacy.
Totally. It's like we all have those friends who we can be brutally honest with, no holds barred, and then there are those where you got to soften the blow a little, even when you have their best interest at heart. Trying to figure that out in a casual relationship where the lines are already blurry to begin with, that just adds a whole other layer of complexity, doesn't it?
You're telling me. And here's another thing. The Post doesn't even tell us how he suggested it. Was it a blunt, you should get that checked out? Or was there an actual attempt at expressing genuine concern? Tone can make a world of difference in a situation like that.
That's so true. And you want to talk about different perspectives, you should see the responses to this post on Reddit. It's like everyone has a different take.
It just goes to show that there are so many different experiences out there.
Yep.
And when it comes to relationships, to social norms, there's rarely a simple right or wrong answer, is there?
And that, I think, is exactly why the AITA subreddit is so popular.
Yeah.
Everyone loves to put on their armchair therapist hat and weigh in, right?
It's like a social experiment unfolding in real time. You get to test your own moral compass against everyone else's.
100%. And in this case, well, let's just say the jury's still out on this one. Some people are giving the OP props for speaking up, even if they didn't love his delivery, while others think he was totally out of line no matter his intentions.
Which leads us perfectly into what we'll be unpacking today. What are the arguments for and against what the OP did? What can this whole situation teach us about the importance of communication, especially when it comes to sensitive topics like health? And maybe most importantly, what can all of you listening learn from this whole debacle?
Let's start with the people who are on the OP side, even if they weren't exactly fans of how he went about it. It's interesting. A lot of women in the comments shared their own personal experiences, and it really stood out to me.
Oh, really? What kind of experiences?
Well, quite a few of them mentioned that they had had similar situations where their partners had found lumps, and it turned out to be something serious. So they were really emphasizing just how important early detection can be.
That's a really good point. It makes you think, while we're sitting here talking about how awkward the whole thing was, the bigger issue is that it's about health, about looking out for each other. And that's something that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely makes you see it in a different light, right? Like, sure, maybe he could have handled it better, but what if he hadn't said anything at all?
Exactly. What if he had just ignored it? And that's where those 10 years of history come into play for a lot of commenters.
Yeah, that really changes the dynamic, doesn't it?
Absolutely. They were saying that kind of familiarity, even if it's not a traditional relationship, changes the expectations a bit. So maybe in that situation, speaking up about a health concern, well, it might not be so much about overstepping as it is about genuinely caring about the other person.
Right, because we all have different ways of communicating depending on the person and the situation. What you can get away with saying to your best friend, you'd never say to a coworker.
Exactly. You have to adjust your approach. Those unspoken rules of communication, they're constantly changing depending on who you're with. It's all about context and understanding the little things.
But context or not, I think we can all agree that there are smoother ways to deliver that kind of news than, right after being intimate.
I think we can all agree on that. Timing is everything.
Right.
And that's where the people who put the OP firmly in the a-hole category, they bring up some really valid points.
Like what?
Well, they were saying no matter how good his intentions were, bringing it up right then and there probably brought up all sorts of insecurities for the woman. It's hard to imagine her not feeling judged in that moment, even if he was coming from a good place.
Oh, absolutely. And, the thing is, we're only hearing one side of the story here. We don't know anything about her medical history, how comfortable she is talking about stuff like that, or if she even already knew about it and was dealing with it in her own way.
Very true. It's a good reminder that even with something like this, an online confession, there's always going to be more to the story. So yeah, before we jump to conclusions, it's important to remember that there are other perspectives out there, vulnerabilities we might not be seeing in a Reddit post.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
Speaking of things we don't usually see on Reddit, did you catch that whole thread where everybody went completely off topic about the phrase 1-2-finger-a-loo?
How could I miss it?
It was like the whole comment section went from this serious conversation about health and relationships to, well, a total meme fest in the blink of an eye.
It's amazing how quickly things can change online, isn't it?
It really is. Suddenly it was all mock outrage. People were talking about the Me Too Finger-a-Loo movement, even joking about class action lawsuits for the emotional distress caused by the phrase.
You gotta give the internet credit for finding humor in the most unexpected places. I guess it just shows that even when we're dealing with serious topics, sometimes a little laughter is the best medicine, you know what I mean?
100%. But on a more practical note, I'm guessing our listeners are hoping for some takeaways that are a little more, well, applicable to their own lives.
You're right. Probably not the best idea to go around saying 1-2-finger-a-loo. Okay, back to the heart of the matter then. This whole AITA situation, it raises some really important questions about communication, about sexual health, and all those blurry lines we navigate in our relationships.
It really does.
And maybe, just maybe, if we analyze this one awkward encounter, we might actually learn something valuable that we can all use in our own lives.
I bet some of you are thinking, okay, interesting story and all, but how does any of this apply to me?
Well, I think even if you've never heard the phrase 1-2-finger-a-loo before this, there are some good lessons here.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to figure out how to be honest, how to look out for each other, but also how to be sensitive, how to respect boundaries. It's something we deal with in all our relationships, not just the romantic ones.
Yeah, it's that balance, isn't it? Speaking up versus keeping quiet. How do you even know when to do one or the other? It's tricky.
There's no easy answer, that's for sure. But I think this whole Reddit post, it gives us a few things to consider. First of all, it reminds us that even if it's awkward, sometimes saying something is better than staying silent, especially when it comes to health.
Absolutely, because early detection can make a world of difference, and that often means being able to talk openly with the people in our lives.
Exactly.
But as we've been saying, it's not just about what you say, it's how you say it. So what are your thoughts on navigating those tough conversations, particularly with someone you're not, officially with?
Well, I think the first rule is probably don't have that conversation right after being intimate.
Probably a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, find a time when you can both actually relax and focus on the conversation,
So set the stage for an actual conversation, not just a quick comment.
Exactly. And when you do say something, try to lead with empathy, So instead of just coming out and saying what you saw, you could say something like, hey, I noticed this the other night and I don't want to overstep, but I do care about you and it would make me feel better if you had it checked out.
Okay, that's much better. That's still direct, it's still honest, but it also shows that you understand that it's a sensitive topic.
Right. You want to show your concern without sounding like you're judging them or putting them under a microscope.
And maybe save that story about your mom for another time.
Probably. I mean, personal stories can be powerful, but that might not be the best place for them. The focus should be on her well-being, not on your own anxieties.
So we've got this Reddit post right now, and it's from this woman, we'll call her OP. OP is 5 weeks out from her wedding.
5 weeks. Can you imagine?
Can't even fathom it. So she's in wedding planning mode, right? Flowers, seating charts, the whole 9 yards.
You're living the dream.
Right. And then she gets this call from a friend, Marcus. Marcus was at her fiancé, Alex's bachelor party.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and well, Marcus has some news. Turns out, Alex assaulted his longtime best friend, Danny, at the party.
Wow. So we're not easing into this one, are we?
No, we're diving right into the deep end.
My fiancé assaulted his BFF on his bachelor party. I don't know what to do. My female 28 fiancé, male 28, Alex, has a BFF, Danny 28, since they were 4. She's not like the usual Reddit BFF. She's a lovely, sweet person who has never crossed boundaries with Alex or their 2 other friends, Marcus and Daniel. The 4 are very close. Danny is gay and always was. She is very much a woman, but likes to dress in jeans and t-shirts and not in any feminine clothing. She is lean, tall, has short hair, and is just one of the boys in a lot of ways. This weekend was Alex's bachelor party. All 4 plus 2 other of Alex's friends went along. It was to a coastal town that's well known for hosting bachelor and bachelorette parties, but there's no strip club or anything. They stayed in a B&B and have scuba diving and kayaking planned. First night went okay. Dinner, restaurant, and nightclub, and home. Last night was the issue. They did the nightclub and headed back to the house. Marcus and Daniel, who are both single, brought back 2 girls from the nightclub and got busy in their bedrooms. The rest were drinking in the living room, but things got a bit loud, and the 2 friends started complaining that they didn't get to go to a strip club and never got to see tits and ass. They were blaming their wives and calling them names. Danny told them to shush as it was ruining the mood, and they both thought it would be funny if they saw Danny's body naked to make up for it. The thing is, Alex joined in and they stripped her. She was screaming loudly, and Marcus and Daniel came running and rescued Danny and put her in the a bedroom with the girls, and had a fight with the 3 men. Daniel doesn't drink due to a chronic medical condition and the medication he is on. So they packed up and took Danny and the 2 girls and left the other 3. Danny was hysterical, and Marcus wanted her to go to the police, but she wouldn't. She was afraid to go home, so they ended up dropping the girls off and taking Danny to her parents', which was an hour away. Marcus was at my door at 7 a.m. this morning, and he told me what happened, that if he ever sees Alex again, he's afraid of how things could go. He told me that if he can convince Danny to press charges, he will. Then he left. Alex returned about 3 this afternoon. He was acting normally until I told him Marcus has visited. He was very nervous and tried to play down what happened as a joke that got out of hand. I'm devastated. I heard him out, but he knew I wasn't accepting what he was saying. I told him Danny may be going to the police, and he got very panicked and pale. He said she had him blocked, and he wanted to go talk to her. I told him she wasn't at her place, as she was too afraid he or his buddies would turn up there. I asked him to leave, and he didn't want to go, but I insisted. He was crying, saying it was a prank that got out of hand. I heard him out only as a courtesy to our 2-year relationship, but I'm done. I don't know this man. I don't know if I should reach out to Danny or just do nothing. Marcus and I have been in constant contact, and he agrees that I have no option but to end things. I don't know where to start with canceling everything, as the wedding was in 5 weeks, but it seems trivial compared to what Danny is going through right now. Marcus is convinced that Danny is going to the police after talking to her parents, so I think Alex is in trouble. I can't support him on this. Maybe I'm wrong, as he was drunk and probably had taken other things, but this was his friend from age 4 and he did this to her. I've not blocked Alex, but I've not replied or picked up any of his calls. Update. Sorry, I don't know how to do updates, so posting this separately. It's been a terrible day. I can't reach out to my friends yet, as I'm ashamed. I did tell my parents and my brother, and they have been wonderful. My brother brought his friend with him when he came to stay, and today both of them packed up every bit of my ex's stuff and took it to his parents' house. Ex was there and just asked if that meant I was finished with him, and my brother said yes. And did he really expect any other reaction? His father intervened and told X not to say anything more. He told my brother to tell me to contact him on canceling the wedding. I'm not contacting his father ever. My parents are handling canceling the wedding, and my father got into my cousin, who is a lawyer, and he is going to help and advise me as needed. I've to disentangle myself from X on leases, bank accounts, savings, and such. Although my brother made me transfer all of my money from joint accounts, savings, and daily accounts to my own account. It's a mess. I tried to ring Danny, but she isn't up for speaking to anyone, so I just text her that I was there for her, and that I had broken up with Alex. She hasn't replied, and I don't expect she will. She's in a bad way, apparently. Daniel spent 3 hours with me today. There's a lot going on, but I'm afraid to say too much for fear of damaging any court case. Just to say, there are 2 videos of the incident. One by Jeb, one of the 2 friends. A lot of it is chaotic, but the last part is clear and telling, apparently. The owners of the rental house apparently have gotten involved and have footage, but I can't say more. When Marcus left me, he went to both those guys' wives and told them what happened. Jeb's wife has been very helpful, apparently, and she has split from him. The other guy's wife, too, has left him. Things are going how most of you want them to go. That's all I will say. Well, I will add, it was worse than what Marcus shared. Daniel told me that before Danny found her style, she had long hair and dressed feminine and was stunningly beautiful, and all three of them were in love with her as teens. Alex took her rejection very personally, apparently, and Daniel says he was angry and bitter for a couple of years but hid it from her. The thought he had gotten over it, but Daniel feels this smacks of revenge against her. Scary if this is true. I have and continue to receive hundreds of texts from Alex. He told me his father told him to stop texting me, but he can't. I haven't replied or blocked based on advice. This is very hard, and I don't know what way all this is going to end up. Sorry about any mistakes and typos, I'm not doing well. If there's more, I will post again if I'm able. Update 2. I got a call from Danny. Daniel has been ever present, and I'm guessing it was because he knew she was going to call. There's a lot more to the story. The first night was normal, as I said, but this Saturday, Alex, Jeb, and their friend decided not to go scuba diving with Daniel and Marcus. Danny was feeling very hungover and gave up after an hour and went back to the Airbnb. She walked into the living room to find all three guys engaging in sexual acts with two women. Jeb shouted at her to get out as this was costing them a fortune. The women were escorts. She left and went back to the boat and only told Marcus what she saw. When they all went back later, Alex told her to not tell me, as it was just his last bit of freedom. She told him she was disgusted with him and that he wasn't free. She told him she would have to think about what to do. Marcus convinced her to stay another night, as he and Daniel had met the two girls the night before and were seeing them again that night. And if Danny wanted to leave, then Daniel would have to take her, as he was her ride. And there wasn't public transport in the tiny town. So Alex cheated, as did the other two. Marcus told their wives that morning, but not me. He was going to do it in stages, as he knew I was in shock. The actual assault went further than Marcus told me also. And while Alex hadn't actually done anything beyond pulling off her clothes, unlike the other two, he stood by and watched and did nothing to help her. She said she thought he had taken shrooms earlier, but couldn't be sure. Marcus and Daniel did rescue her, but things had already escalated. She went to the police immediately she got to her parents. The Airbnb owners had also gone independently when they saw the footage. All three men are facing the consequences of their actions. Danny told me she was sorry she didn't tell me immediately, like she wanted to do. She is very distraught still. I didn't want to make things worse for her. I don't think I am needed for any legal proceedings, so I finally blocked Alex and his parents. The wedding is canceled, and I'm just starting to disentangle myself from Alex on bank accounts and such. Here's my issue. I'm feeling very angry towards Marcus. It feels like he didn't really care about me. He stopped Danny from telling me so he could continue to shack up with the girl he met. He apparently feels guilty because if they had left, Danny would not have been attacked. He didn't do me the courtesy of telling me that Alex cheated that morning, like he did with the other two wives. It's not like he was sparing my feelings because my ex assaulting another woman was a pretty damn bad thing to hear. He didn't tell me the full extent of the attack. Danny is still unsure if Alex wasn't just waiting his turn, or all he was going to do was watch. I should have been told that ASAP, and not from Danny because the conversation was incredibly difficult for her. Daniel didn't know about the escorts at all, and didn't know. Marcus hasn't shared the full story of what they saw when they burst in. Daniel has been my rock. I need some perspective here. Is it okay to be angry at Marcus? Is it misplaced anger? I'm pretty angry at Alex, though, and that's all I feel towards him. Can anyone give me a different perspective in missing? Marcus and I had been in constant contact. He's already back at work, so it was messages, texts, and occasional calls. He actually visited last night, but I didn't open the door to him. Daniel is saying whatever I feel right now is okay. But I think he's just placating me. I don't know who to trust anymore. I don't have to have any more contact with Alex, and think the case will move along without me. I'm thinking of telling Daniel that I need a break from him and Marcus and that group of friends. Danny and I have said we will stay in touch, but I can't see us as being very close. My best friend, who I finally confided in, thinks I should just step away from them all now for good and try to move forward. My parents agree and think it's necessary for healing. My brother thinks Daniel has been nothing but great, and I shouldn't cut him off. But they all seem to be a package deal, but without Alex now, obviously. So I think it's probably all or nothing. What should I do? I don't want to be ungrateful, but a clean break feels right. Update 3. I've been putting off writing this update, but I'm back because I need even more advice and an outside perspective. The comments have been pretty helpful so far. Thank you. It's long, but I'll do my best to shorten it. Trigger warnings for sexual assault, drugs, violence. First of all, Danny and I have bonded. She and I talk every day and message constantly. I didn't expect that, but it's truly wonderful. She says she needs a good straight friend right now. And honestly, she is a great person and has been a huge support to me despite what she has been going through. I told her I posted here as I felt guilty as to tell my story I had to tell hers. She was okay with it. She is thinking of waiving her right to anonymity when the trial comes, as she wants everyone to know she was raped and by who. Danny has quit her job, moved to her parents full-time, and is in therapy. She's just about okay, surviving still rather than living, but she is so strong and amazing. Justice moves slowly here, so there isn't too much of an update on the legal process. Marcus was told, however, he would not face charges for assault for attacking the two actively attacking Danny. I went back to work, and it was awful. I work for a tiny startup. Oscar, who works there, is friendly with Marcus and my brother. We are all into martial arts and attend the same dojo. So I'm getting a lot pity. I'd have been okay with sympathy or empathy, but being pitied sucks. Still, it's better than being home all day, doing nothing. Daniel gave me space, as I asked, and he is truly a good guy. There is nothing romantic there at all, though. I'm not in a fit state for anything like that, and won't be for a very, very long time, and he is just a good guy. No ulterior motives. We text a bit, and he is in a lot of contact with Danny. I got a letter in the mail from Alex. Said he held out hope while I hadn't blocked him, but once I did, he was distraught. He told me he doesn't want to freak me out by turning up in person, and I know that wouldn't look good for him anyway, but he just wanted to tell his side of the story. He said he was pressured into doing stuff with the escorts, and he only got a blowjob. The other two were really pressuring him to do more, but he didn't, and says he regrets even doing that. He admits he was angry at Danny because she told him he either told me about the cheating or she would, but he knew he was totally in the wrong. He knew I would dump him for cheating, so he took everything he could get his hands on. He's not even sure what he took, and while he remembers pulling off Danny's shoes, he doesn't remember anything else. So he was just peer-pressured and drunk and drugged up, and he did nothing wrong at all, basically. I was just disgusted to read this. His total lack of accountability is just sickening. I'm not responding to him ever. Any future mail goes unopened into the trash. I'm in therapy, but it's early days and I'm not seeing progress yet. That leaves me with Marcus. He knows I've been angry with him, and he is desperate to talk it out. I probably feel too much anger towards him, but find it hard not to. He is still feeling very guilty over making Donnie stay. I don't understand why I feel so angry towards him. It's not on the level of anger I feel towards Alex, by any means. But I'm still hesitant to talk to him. I think he made mistakes, but in my heart, I know he was dealing with a lot that morning. But I just wouldn't have been there when Alex got home if I had known the truth. I feel Marcus should have told me everything, as I was the one who had to face Alex alone. I know I should hear him out, but I'm finding it very hard. How can I get past this? I want to clear the air with him, even if we are never friends, and me cutting him out is really having a terrible effect on him. I know he rescued Danny, and has been constantly checking up on her. I know he can be a good guy, but part of me feels he wasn't all good that weekend. I don't know. I haven't touched this in therapy, as we are just starting, and are talking about Alex. I need advice on how to deal with this. I wanted to give it some time, but Marcus' mental health is pretty poor. And maybe by not meeting him, I am just making him worse. How can I find it in me to just bite the bullet and hear him out? Why am I so angry with him? How can I move past this? I don't want to be angry at him. I'm so exhausted from being angry at him and at Alex, and I want it to stop, at least towards Marcus. But it won't. Help. I'm visiting Danny for the weekend that should have been my wedding. We are going to have a Lord of the Rings marathon, and her mother is making a cheesecake. My own family have been wonderful in every way, but Danny is truly why I'm still standing. Ate it. Forgot to say it wasn't an Airbnb, it was just a privately rented house. I just assumed incorrectly it was.
And what's interesting here, right off the bat, is OOP's reaction. There's no hesitation, no questioning. She immediately confronts Alex, kicks him out, and her entire focus shifts to Donnie.
Yeah, it's like her self-preservation instincts kick in, but they're aimed outward towards protecting Donnie first.
It's remarkable. You don't always see that in these situations.
Right. Often there's this denial, this attempt to minimize what happened.
Exactly. But OOP shuts that down immediately. She's not giving Alex an inch to explain away his actions.
So let's talk about the assault itself. Initially, Marcus, the friend who told OOP what happened, he kind of downplays it, says the guys were being stupid, things got out of hand.
Physical.
Yeah, but OOP, she's got this gut feeling that something's not right, so she starts digging.
And that's where it gets really unsettling. Because as OOP talks to other people who are at the party, a much darker picture starts to emerge. This wasn't just some drunken mistake like Marcus implied. It was a deliberate assault.
And what's worse?
What's worse is that it seems like this might have been brewing for a while. There are hints that Alex might have had some seriously messed up feelings for Donnie for years.
Hold on. So there's more to this story than just a bachelor party gone wrong.
Right.
What kind of messed up feelings are we talking about?
Well, according to what OOP found out later, Donnie, who is a lesbian, rejected Alex's advances years ago. It was a pretty clear no, too.
Right.
And now it's coming out that he may have never gotten over it, that he's held on to this anger and resentment all this time.
Wow. So he pretends to be her friend all those years, and then this happens.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you wonder how well you can ever truly know someone.
And it speaks to a disturbing pattern we often see, the sense of entitlement some people feel, like rejection is a personal attack that needs to be avenged. It's scary, honestly.
Absolutely. So it's like this whole nice guy act was just that, an act.
Exactly, and it really makes you question every interaction, right? Like how much of it was genuine.
Right, and I can't even imagine what's going through OP's head at this point. It's not just some random acquaintance. This is her fiancé, the person she's about to build a life with.
It really shakes you to your core. And of course, there's the wedding, which is 5 weeks away.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot about the wedding. So not only is she dealing with this emotional earthquake, but she's also got this ticking clock, this whole life she's planned out that's suddenly crumbling around her.
It's a lot to process. But you know what's amazing? OOP doesn't fall apart. She goes into problem-solving mode. From what I gather from the Reddit thread, she tells her family right away, and they jump into action. Her brother helps her pack up Alex's things. Her parents start canceling the wedding. It's really incredible.
Like, talk about a support system, right?
It makes you realize how important it is to have people you can lean on, especially in those really dark moments.
Yeah, and OP doesn't stop there. She also gets a lawyer involved.
Smart move. Yeah. Always a good idea in these kinds of situations.
Especially because, as it turns out, there's video footage of the assault. Apparently, there was a security camera at the rental property where the bachelor party took place.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
Right. It completely changes the game, having that kind of evidence.
It really does. It corroborates Donnie's account, strengthens the case against Alex and the other guys involved.
That's got to be a small comfort for OOP and Donnie, knowing there's actual proof to back up their story.
Absolutely. It reinforces the fact that what happened was wrong, that it wasn't just a misunderstanding or something that could be brushed away.
Speaking of Donnie, I'm so curious about her and OOP's relationship throughout all of this. It's just, here they are, brought together by this horrific event, and they end up forming this incredibly strong bond.
It's really quite beautiful in a way. The Reddit post talks about how they supported each other, leaned on each other during a time when it felt like their worlds were falling apart.
It's almost like this awful, terrible thing happened, and yet this amazing friendship blossomed out of it.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human connection, that empathy and support, can be a powerful force for healing.
Powerful indeed. But, this whole situation also shines a light on some of the not-so-great dynamics within their larger friend group.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets really messy. Remember Marcus, the friend who first told OOP about the assault? Well, Turns out he knew a lot more than he initially let on.
Oh no, what else is going on?
So get this, the night before the assault, Alex and two of the other friends at the bachelor party, Jeb and another guy, they hired escorts.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously! And apparently they were trying to keep it hush-hush, but Donnie found out.
So not only are they cheating on their partners, but that somehow leads to Donnie being assaulted. I am speechless.
It's a perfect example of how quickly things can go sideways when people prioritize their own selfish desires over the well-being of others.
Okay, but what does this have to do with Marcus? I'm a little lost.
Well, Marcus knew about the escorts the whole time. He knew what these guys were up to, but he chose to keep it from OOP.
Wait, why would he do that?
He claimed he was trying to protect her, spare her the pain of knowing about Alice's infidelity on top of everything else.
Ugh, I see. So it's like this whole moral dilemma, right? On one hand, I understand wanting to shield your friend from more heartache.
Especially in a moment of crisis.
Exactly. But on the other hand, keeping a secret like that, especially given the gravity of the situation, it feels wrong.
The big question is, did he protect Donnie, or did he prioritize his own comfort? Was it truly kindness, or was it a way to minimize the fallout for himself?
Such a tricky situation with no easy answers. It really makes you think about where loyalty ends and complicity begins.
It's a gray area for sure. It's important to remember, too, that this whole situation involves another friend, Daniel, who, unlike the others, wasn't involved in any of the wrongdoings. He doesn't drink because of a medical condition, so he was never part of the whole escort thing, and he immediately stepped in to help Donnie during the assault.
So at least there was one decent guy there.
It seems that way, yes. But even Daniel's experience highlights the ripple effect of trauma. Even though he wasn't directly involved in causing harm, he was still there, a witness to this awful event. It really underscores how these situations impact everyone involved, even those on the periphery.
It's like their whole world just exploded and now they're all trying to pick up the pieces.
It's a powerful image, and it speaks to the far-reaching consequences of what happened, especially for OOP. Not only has her relationship imploded, but she's also grappling with this sense of betrayal on such a fundamental level, like she can't trust her own judgment.
Right, like if the person she thought she knew could do something like this, who else can she trust?
Exactly. It really rocks your faith in everything and everyone.
And to make matters worse, she gets this letter from Alex. You'd think at this point, after everything that's happened, he'd be drowning in remorse, taking full responsibility for his actions.
You'd hope so, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not what we see here.
So what does he say? What kind of excuses does he come up with?
We'll buckle up, because this letter is a masterclass in deflection and minimization. First of all, he blames everyone but himself, claims he was pressured into hiring the escorts, says he was too drunk and high to remember most of what happened during the assault. It's the oldest trick in the book.
Oh, so now it's the I was drunk excuse.
A classic. It's a way to avoid taking responsibility for his actions.
It's infuriating. Like his being intoxicated somehow absolves him of all responsibility.
And of course, let's not forget that alcohol might lower your inhibitions, but it doesn't turn you into a different person. You're still accountable for your choices and your behavior, no matter how much you've had to drink.
Exactly. And you know what really gets me? He claims the only thing he remembers doing to Donnie is taking off her shoes. Like, what?
It's such a bizarre detail to focus on, isn't it? But it actually reveals a lot more than he probably intended.
How so?
Think about it. In order to remove someone's shoes against their will, there has to be some level of force, some struggle. It paints a very clear picture of the assault, despite his attempts to downplay it.
Ugh, it makes me sick to my stomach. It's clear that he's still prioritizing his own narratives, his own comfort, over the very real pain he caused.
Absolutely. But despite all of this, there is a glimmer of hope in this whole story. OOP, even after everything she's been through, all the anger, the betrayal, the upheaval, she chooses to heal. She goes to therapy, cuts off contact with Alex, and focuses on supporting Donnie.
It's remarkable, really. I don't know if I would be that strong.
It speaks volumes about her character, her resilience. It would be so easy to get bogged down in anger and resentment, to fixate on getting an apology or seeing Alex suffer.
Right. But she chooses a different path.
She does. OOP chooses to focus on what she can control, her own healing and her friends' well-being. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the bravest and most empowering thing you can do is to define your own closure, to move on without needing apologies or validation from those who hurt you.
That's such an important message. We're talking robust of Redditor updates, where this post from about a year ago blew up. The original poster, or OOP as they say in Reddit land, was facing a predicament that's like everyone's worst nightmare. Imagine this. You're head over heels planning a future with your soulmate, right?
Wedding bells, the whole 9 yards.
And then wham, you uncover a disturbing secret about their family. Like seriously messed up stuff.
Talk about a mood killer.
Right.
I'm rethinking having a child with my wife because of what I just found out about her dad. Am I the asshole? My wife Jessica, 32 female, and I, 30 male, have been married for 2 years and are trying for a baby. Jessica has an older sister, Mary, that she isn't close to. She told me that they had a huge falling out over some family drama and just don't speak anymore. I asked a few times about the entire situation, but she would say she doesn't like talking about it and doesn't think it's important. It was Jessica's brother's birthday yesterday, and we were all over at his house to celebrate. Mary made an appearance, and there was a lot of drama. Long story short, she called Jessica and her brothers out for still associating with their dad when they know that he is a child molester. No one was paying her any mind, and I was really confused on what the hell was going on. When Mary left and Jessica and I went home, I asked Jessica what the hell happened. She said that when they were kids, Mary used to claim that their dad used to molest her. I asked if it's true, and Jessica was stuttering a lot. She said she knows her dad used to do bad things, but that Mary cut them all off when she turned 18 and moved out. I asked if she is admitting that she knows her dad was a child molester and did things to his own daughter. She said he doesn't do it anymore, and he was just in a really bad place in his life, and he apologized to Mary, so there's nothing else anyone can do for Mary. I was honestly appalled. I also feel so terrible for Mary. Jessica made it seem like Mary did something wrong and deserved to be basically exiled from the family. I could have never imagined that this is what happened. I asked if she expects me to now be willing to have that man around our future children, and she started shouting at me, saying I'm judging him off something that happened 2 decades ago, and whether I like it or not, he is going to be our child's grandpa, and he will be in their lives. I said if she insists on it, I think we need to hold off on having kids and have serious conversations about it. She's extremely angry at me, but I don't know how I could better react, to be honest. This feels like a huge deal that she is minimizing. Am I the asshole? Update. It's been nearly a year since my initial post, so I thought I would give an update. A few days after my original post, I sat Jessica down and told her how I was feeling. I told her I'm not okay with what she and her family had done to Mary. They knew what their dad had done to her, but still chose to take his side and make Mary look crazy. I told her I'm also not okay with brushing her father's crimes under the rug. She was quiet and didn't say anything. She didn't try to defend herself or her family. She was just staring at me in a very chilling way. Almost like she was indifferent to whatever I had to say and just wanted it to be over. I told her I needed time to myself, and I would leave and think about what I wanted to do. Suddenly, she was paying attention. She seemed shocked and panicked. She started begging me not to leave, saying I'll get over it in a few days when we get back to how we usually are and things settle down. She said all families have skeletons in their closet and that this can't define our marriage. I said no, and I left the house for a few days. I ignored all her calls and those of her family. I reached out to Mary on Facebook. I wrote her a lengthy message about how I had no idea all she had been through and that I'm so sorry for how her family treated her. I told her to reach out to me if she ever needs anything. She got back to me and asked if we can meet for coffee. We met up the day after. At first it was small talk, then she asked if I would be okay if she told me her version of events. I said of course I would, and she spoke to me about it. Everything her dad did and how her family treated her after she told them. I felt physically sick. She even told me stories about how Jessica told her friends that Mary has a mental condition that causes hallucinations, and that just in case Mary starts rumors about their family, that's why. A lot of people still believe Mary has a mental condition because of Jessica. I knew after that talk that I had to end things with Jessica. I went over to our house and told her I want a divorce. I told her I cannot stand the thought of being her husband and a part of their disgusting family. All she did was cry and ask all this for her. I knew then that she hadn't changed. She was still the same person that did all of those things to Mary. and she was still doing them. We're still not officially divorced, but we haven't been together since, and we are going through the process. It's just taking longer than I thought to get it finalized. Mary and I became friends. I invited her to a birthday dinner my family were hosting for me, and she hit it off with my cousin. He's crazy about her, and she seems really happy with him too. He keeps asking me if it would be too early to propose, and I have to tell him to not scare her away, lol. But they have a really wholesome relationship, and I'm really happy for them. As for me, I'm just surviving. Divorces are tough, but I know I made the right choice. Thank you to everyone that responded and gave me advice. I really appreciate it.
OOP got blindsided at a family gathering. Jessica, his wife's brother, was having a birthday party, and things went south real fast. Jessica's sister Mary shows up and unleashes this bombshell accusation.
Okay, spill the tea.
She claims their father is a child molester.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, heavy stuff, right?
Yeah.
You can practically feel the air get sucked out of the room through the screen.
Total record scratch moment.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Instead of acknowledging how serious this is, Jessica jumps straight to her dad's defense.
No way she went full-on denial mode.
Full throttle. She's O's ages ago, and he's a changed man now.
Yeah.
Like trying to sweep it under the rug with a dustpan and brush.
It's almost like she's clinging to an image of her family that just can't be true anymore.
Right. And the Redditverse picked up on that vibe instantly.
Right.
One of the top comments on OP's original post was straight up chillin'.
Hit me with it.
Pedophiles rarely retire. Just like that.
What?
Blunt and to the point.
Oof. Yeah, that'll make you pause.
And then others chimed in, pointing out that even if nothing happened recently, legally speaking, there might be loopholes that could make it hard for OOP to protect his future kids if something were to go down.
They're not wrong, though. It's a terrifying thought. But those legal loopholes do exist, and ignoring them or pretending they don't matter doesn't make them go away.
Exactly. And then there was this other comment that really got to OOP, and honest to me too. It made him realize that Jessica probably knew about these accusations all along, but she chose not to tell him.
Oh no, she kept that buried deep.
Buried it deep like a secret treasure no one's supposed to find. And that lack of honesty, especially when they're about to start a family, is a major red flag.
You can't build a future on a foundation of secrets and hidden truths. It just leads to cracks in the foundation, and eventually the whole thing crumble.
Preach. And that's where we leave OP at the end of this first post. Stuck in a web of secrecy, potential danger, and growing suspicion about the woman he's about to spend his life with. Fast forward almost a year to the day, and OOP drops an update. It's like he's been through the ringer, wrestling with what he learned, trying to make sense of Jessica, the woman he loves, and this whole messed up situation with her family.
A year is a long time to stew on something that heavy. You can practically feel the weight of those sleepless nights and endless what-if scenarios.
Yeah, and he does something really brave. He confronts Jessica head on. No more tiptoeing around it. He tells her straight up that he's disgusted by her family brushing her dad's past under the rug like it's no big deal, and their attempts to silence Mary and basically paint her as a liar.
He's drawing a line in the sand saying, I see what you're doing and I'm not down with it.
And her reaction, it's honestly chilling. It's not anger or even defending her family. OOP describes her as weirdly calm, almost robotic, like she's totally emotionally checked out.
Whoa. That's a whole other level of messed up. It's like she learned to shut down completely to avoid any kind of conflict, even when it involves something this serious.
Yeah, you can almost feel OOP reaching out, trying to connect with her on some level, but it's like talking to a brick wall. And then she says something that's just bone-chilling.
Oh man, this is where it gets really real. What'd she say?
She tries to normalize the whole thing, like make it seem like child sexual abuse is just your run-of-the-mill family secret that everyone has.
Wait, she actually said that?
She said all families have skeletons in their closets.
Oh, wow, that is seriously messed up. To try and equate what Mary accused her father of doing with some harmless little family secret, that's beyond messed up.
Yeah, it's clear that Jessica's in deep denial. Like she's internalized this toxic family dynamic so much that she can't even see how wrong it is.
It's like she's trapped in that cycle of silence and denial, and she doesn't even realize it.
And for Obi, that's the breaking point. He realizes he can't be with someone who refuses to see the truth. He leaves Jessica and starts the process of filing for divorce.
It's heartbreaking, but it takes a lot of strength to walk away from something like that, even if it means leaving the woman he thought he was going to spend his life with.
Totally. And here's where the story takes this unexpected turn. Remember that Facebook message OOP sent to Mary way back after the birthday party? The one where he offered his support and said he wanted to hear her side of everything?
Yeah, what happened with that?
Well, a whole year later, Mary finally responds.
Wow, a whole year. That speaks volumes about the kind of trauma she must have gone through.
Right, like, who could blame her for not trusting anyone even remotely connected to her family? But something about OOP's message must have resonated with her. Maybe it was the fact that he simply believed her.
Sometimes that's all it takes. Just one person to say, I believe you, I see you, and what you went through matters.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They end up meeting for coffee, and that's when things take a huge turn. Mary opens up to OOP about the abuse she endured from her father, the emotional manipulation, the years of living in fear and silence.
That had to be a heavy conversation to have with someone she barely knows, but it also shows how desperate she was for someone to finally listen to her.
For real. Her own family threw her under the bus to protect themselves and their image. Classic Darvo, deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender.
It's so common in families dealing with abuse. It's sickening.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. OOP, this virtual stranger, becomes Mary's rock. He actually listens to her without judgment, without trying to downplay what happened. He just believes her.
The power of believing someone, especially when they've been doubted and dismissed by everyone else, is huge. It can be the difference between staying trapped in that cycle of silence and finally starting to heal.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. How just saying, I believe you, can be so powerful.
Especially for someone like Mary, whose own flesh and blood basically treated her like she was the problem.
Right. Instead of, the one who actually did something horrible.
It really highlights how important it is for survivors to feel heard and validated. For someone to acknowledge their pain without trying to sugarcoat it or explain it away.
To just be there with a minute.
Exactly. And that's what OOP did for Mary. He created this safe space for her to open up. And honestly, that's probably a huge part of why she was able to start healing.
And that's what the story could have wrapped up, right? With OOP dodging a major bullet and, helping Mary find her voice again. But OP's update throws in one last curveball. He and Mary, they actually become friends, like legit friends.
That's kind of beautiful, actually. Two people brought together by this shared experience with this really messed up family dynamic.
Totally. And it gets better. OOP invites Mary to his birthday dinner, and guess who's there? His cousin.
No way, matchmaker OOP in the house.
Matchmaker OOP strikes again. And you won't believe it, they hit it off. Like really hit it off. They start dating, and by the end of the update, OOP's hinting that his cousin might even be ready to pop the question.
Talk about a plot twist. Who would have thought that something positive could come out of all that drama?
Right. It's like a rom-com disguised as a cautionary tale.
It gives you hope, though, right? Like, even after going through something as awful as what Mary went through, there's still a chance to find love and happiness.
Totally. But it does make you wonder, whatever happened to Jessica? Did she ever come to terms with everything? Like with her family's past and her own role in all of it?
OOP doesn't say, and honestly, it's probably for the best. His focus is on his own healing and moving on. But Jessica's story really makes you think, how many other people are out there living with those same kinds of secrets?
Trapped in these families where they're too scared to speak up, or maybe they don't even realize how unhealthy things really are.
It's a sobering thought, but it's also a reminder that we need to be having these conversations about abuse and family dynamics. More importantly, we need to be creating spaces where people feel safe enough to speak their truth.
100%. It all starts with listening, with believing, and with supporting survivors, no matter how messy or uncomfortable it gets.
And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply be there for someone to listen without judgment and to offer support without trying to fix them or minimize their pain. You never know what kind of ripple effect that one act of kindness can have.
We are diving into a story that has been making the rounds and sparking a lot of conversation. It's about a topless maid, a broken heart, and a very, very public quest to figure out, well, who's in the right here.
Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend, you knew my job, why do you care now, when he broke up with me because of it? Hi everyone. So I want to start by saying I, female 21, have a really unique job that not a lot of people agree with. It's okay if you don't, it's not your job and it doesn't have to be. I respect your opinion, just please don't be rude about it. I currently work as a maid, a topless maid, as in I clean people's homes with no clothes but my bottoms on. I do this because my friend found it as a side hustle. I am currently in college and it is how I pay for each of my semesters, enabling to me to graduate with zero debt. I graduate next semester. At that point, I will quit my job. I typically clean very expensive homes for very rich people. And I have never really had a bad experience at my job.
Thank God. Of course there is leering, but I mean that's the appeal. It really doesn't bother me. I told my boyfriend, male 25, this on our second date because I know that some people, especially men, have a problem with it. I have to admit he was a little put off at first, but ultimately he decided he was okay with it, as long as it isn't my life goal, lol, which it certainly isn't. We have been dating now for 6 months, and it has been very good. He honestly is a great boyfriend, and I did see a future with him. Unfortunately, last night he broke up with me. It started because I told him to come to my house at 7, and I would make us dinner. Well, I ended up being late because there was an accident on the bridge I take from one of my clients' house. My boyfriend heard it on the news and told me take my time, he will chill at my apartment and it's not a rush. When I got home, I was exhausted from driving and went right to my bedroom to put some comfy clothes on. My boyfriend was there. It didn't bother me. I just took my shirt off to throw a PJ shirt on. My boyfriend looked at me as I did, and I could see in his face that something changed that instant. He saw me topless, and with my uniform bottoms on, and it seemed like he just now made that connection about what I do and look like. He broke up with me right then and there. I sobbed all night and all day. When he called me just recently, I asked him why. He told me my job. I told him that he's known my job. Why even waste my time and break my heart? He called me a slut and an asshole for that. He told me, you can't even see this from my perspective. I actually loved you. I'm just so hurt. Am I the asshole for any of this? I thought I was so clear about everything my job is. Update. Wow, okay, I am literally shocked about how many people saw and commented here. Thank you so much for those who were kind to me. This whole breakup sucks, but this has really helped me. To answer a few popular questions, no, this is not fake. Yes, this is really my job for now. No, I do not, have not, and never will sleep with my clients. No, I do not have a pimp lol. Yes, my clients look at me, but it would be weird if they did not. Yes, I am safe. Yes, I get paid about $1,500 per shift, which varies on hours. They tip me for more, but it is never sexual or anything flirtatious. I pay my way through college like this because I go to community, I will graduate as a nurse, and I have an academic scholarship already as well. Yes, my boyfriend had seen me naked before. That was an odd question. And my uniform bottoms are black shorts. Yes, I have to look pretty when I go low. Yes, I actually clean, but it's more like your everyday stuff you do rather than a real housekeeper. I think that's it, but again, thank you for the kind comments on here. It genuinely helped me so much.
We have a 21-year-old woman. She's turning to this online jury because her boyfriend dumped her. He dumped her over her job, which is, wait for it, she's a topless maid.
Okay, hold on. Stop right there, because she was upfront with him about this.
Yeah.
Like from the get-go.
Yeah.
Like second date up front. It wasn't some kind of like, oh, by the way, surprise, 6 months in. This is her job. She's not ashamed of it. She was looking for a partner, not, someone to judge her career choices.
Which makes his reaction all the more, intriguing. He was initially fine with it, or at least he said he was. But then he sees her. He sees her at her apartment in her, let's call it her uniform.
And just for those who are picturing feather dusters and that whole French maid outfit, think again. We'll get into the specifics a bit later, but it is way less Moulin Rouge, way more, practical.
Practical, yes. So he sees her, and suddenly the reality of her job, something he thought he was okay with, it's like it hits him. And he breaks up with her. Right there, on the spot.
And, relationships end. That's part of life, right? But it's how he reacted that has everyone talking. Like, she is heartbroken. Understandably so. Confused. And when she finally asked him why, his response. Well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a hallmark moment. He called her.
And this is where we start to peel back the layers of what seems like, on the surface, a simple situation. It's like, okay, boyfriend reacts badly, but underneath, so much more going on.
It's about acceptance versus reality, isn't it? Like, it's easy to say, oh, I'm open-minded when you're talking in theory, right? But then reality hits, and sometimes our preconceived notions, they clash with the reality of someone's choices. Especially when it's something like this.
Yeah. Something
that's so personal, potentially loaded. I mean, we are talking about sex work here.
Exactly. And that is the theme that echoes throughout this entire Reddit thread. It's like this whole story became a Rorschach test for people's beliefs. Beliefs about relationships, about work, societal expectations, the whole thing.
And guys, The comments. Don't even get me started. It's like someone opened up, I don't know, a Pandora's box of hot takes and judgments and everything in between.
It's a fascinating spectrum of opinions. You've got people who are just shocked, like, what? Total disapproval. And then you've got the jokesters, right?
Right.
Turning it into a whole meme. And then there's this other group, and this is the group that really got me. They're all about, get that money, girl. Like, full-on support, even admiration for her hustle.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what struck me too. Here we are talking about a job that, let's be real, it carries a lot of stigma, and yet you see this outpouring of support, this understanding, and even, like you said, admiration.
Right, and I think it speaks to something, a shift that's happening. What's considered acceptable work, it's changing, especially for, younger generations. I mean, they're facing down these crazy economic pressures, right?
And speaking of, there's this moment in the thread. It takes a turn. Somebody pops up with this question, and I'm just going to quote it here because it's something. They ask, do they let, and I quote, fat chicks do this job? Oh, wow. Okay, so there's a weight requirement for topless maid service now. Like it's a VS Angel casting call or something.
Right. But it's her response that really gets me. She mentions that one of her colleagues, she's curvy, and she consistently gets the biggest tips.
Okay, I love that. Throws the whole stereotype right out the window.
Exactly. Attractiveness, it's subjective. And it reminds us that, we put people in these boxes based on one physical attribute. It's not just reductive. It's usually totally inaccurate.
100%. But you know what? The comment section, they can't help themselves. It's details. Everyone wants to know what a topless maid uniform even is. And what are the clients doing while all this has happened? Paint me a picture.
Okay, so to answer the first question, she clarifies. The uniform, it's basically black shorts and, topless, no feather dusters, nothing scandalous, just practical. As for the clients, she kept it pretty vague there, but it opens up this whole other can of worms, right? What is this service really?
Right, because is it just cleaning? Or is there this unspoken element of, I don't know, voyeurism going on? And where's the line between a service and something that maybe crosses over into, I don't know, exploitation?
And those are all valid questions. And it's interesting because the Reddit thread, it becomes this microcosm of this whole ethical debate about sex work. On one side, you've got people who are like, is this even necessary? Is it exploitative? And then you have the other side, the argument for individual agency. It's her body, her choice. And let's not forget the economic realities, right? Maybe this is what she needs to do.
And those realities, they become super clear when you see all these comments popping up about student debt.
Oh, yeah. This isn't just about a topless maid and a judgmental, ex-boyfriend. This is about student loans. This is about the choices people make when they feel like they're drowning in debt. It makes you think, would she even be considering this job if she wasn't under so much pressure?
It's a good question, right? And it leads to another layer of this whole thing. The double standards. We're talking about women here, specifically women in, any kind of work that falls under that sex work umbrella. I mean, can you imagine if this was a guy? A topless butler or something.
Oh, 100%. Different story, right? Different reactions from the boyfriend, from the internet, everyone. It's like this spotlight on how uncomfortable society is with female sexuality, And that stigma, it's like, it just hangs over sex work.
Yeah.
Women get judged more harshly, even if it's legal, consensual, and let's be real, it's a job.
It's interesting, though, because even with, everything we've talked about, I did see some people in the comments who actually had a bit of sympathy for the boyfriend.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not for, calling her names. Obviously, that's not okay. But for the whole, how the reality of her job kind of slapped him in the face,
Ah, I see. Yeah, I think there's this understanding that sometimes you don't really know until you know.
Until you see it.
Exactly. It's one thing to get it intellectually right. Okay, this is what you do. But then you're confronted with the visual. It's real, and it can bring up all these feelings you weren't expecting.
Totally. It's like, I don't know, finding out your partner's a surgeon. Yeah, okay, you get the concept, but then you're actually there in the observation room watching them operate, and it suddenly hits different.
100%. The abstract becomes, not so abstract anymore.
Right.
And in this case, who knows? Maybe the boyfriend, he was hit with this wave of jealousy, insecurity, maybe even his own ideas about masculinity were challenged in a way he didn't see coming.
I get that. It's like that shift that can happen in a relationship, right? You go from, my partner is so cool, so independent, to, oh, wait, other people see that side of them too.
It's a wake-up call.
For sure. So yeah, not defending his actions, but, It adds another layer to think about.
Definitely. It reminds us that relationships, they're messy. Even now, with everything being so open, those expectations, they can still trip people up.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, actions speak louder, right? They broke up. And she's left dealing with, well, not just the breakup, but how it all went down.
And you know what? Sometimes those endings, those really rough ones, they're actually like disguised beginnings.
Oh, interesting.
Because if he couldn't handle this one thing about her, even after she was so open, so honest, what does that say about them? About whether they really even work together,
That's the question, isn't it? Makes you wonder if maybe, just maybe, she dodged a bullet there. But, okay, beyond all the drama, the relationship stuff, this whole thing, it's really got us thinking.
Absolutely. For one, just how important open communication is. In any relationship. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it's crucial.
So true. And also just recognizing that, we all have these ideas about how things should be, about work, relationships, you name it. But those ideas, they can get in the way of seeing how things actually are for other people.
And this story, it's like a giant flashing sign reminding us about those double standards, those economic pressures, that stigma that just doesn't seem to go away.
So as we come up for air on this deep dive, we're left with a question for you guys listening. How much do our own, biases, our assumptions, how much do those color how we see other people, how we judge them? What would it look like to approach these situations with a little more curiosity, a little less judgment?
Because at the end of the day, everyone has a story. And sometimes it's the stories that push us out of our comfort zones, the ones that make us really think. Those are the stories that teach us the most.
So we've covered a lot today, some really heavy stuff, but it's been an important conversation. And if you're listening out there and any of this resonated with you, please know that you're not alone. Reach out, talk to someone you trust. There are resources available, and there's always hope, even in the darkest of times.